The voice of Egypt, star of the East, the fourth pyramid. You call me by these names among many others, yet I have only known myself as Kawari al-Falahin, a peasant villager. My given name is Fatima Ibrahim, but the world calls me Kalthoum. My birthday is May 4th, 1904. I was born the youngest of 3 children in a small Egyptian village in the northern region of the Delta Nile. It was called Tameh Izahera. The highest building was no higher than 2 stories, and the richest man showed his wealth by his 1-horse carriage. There was only one dirt road in the whole village, just wide enough for the wealthy man's carriage. My parents were humble. Father was an imam, the one who leads prayer in the mosque, and mother, well, she was a housewife. We lived a simple life in a small brick house. My parents taught my sister, brother, and me the importance of truth, humility, and trust in God. When I was 5 years old, I entered the Katub, or the Quran school, with my brother Khalid. I memorized sections of the Quran and learned to read and write. I loved listening to Father as he led prayers. Then something magical happened. Father taught Khalid how to sing and perform at celebrations. I watched them from the shadows, listening, learning, and absorbing every lesson like a dry sponge in water. This is when it happened for me. I was enthralled with the music and the idea of making music with my voice. I had found my passion. When I was 12, Father heard me singing. He realized that I knew all the songs he and Khalid sang and invited me to join them in their performances. I was thrilled, of course, and happily joined them. Because we lived in a very conservative community and girls were forbidden to sing in public, Father dressed me as a boy to avoid scandal. I didn't care. I got to sing. People paid attention and loved us. Soon, I was the reason the people wanted to hear our family sing. Our work grew, and we were hired to entertain for many events. We traveled farther and farther from our village, most often on foot. In fact, I think we walked the entire Delta Nile before we ever set foot in Cairo. It's ironic when I think about it. The rest of the world was at war. They called it the War to End All Wars, a time when Egyptian leaders were denied entrance to Paris. And here I was, dressed as a boy, singing my way through Egypt with my beloved family and having the time of my life. Many people encouraged Father to bring me to Cairo so that my career could grow. Of course, I was excited to go to the big, beautiful city of Cairo, but at the same time, it was a little scary for this country girl. At first, he didn't want me to go because we didn't know anyone and there was no guarantee that we would find work. After praying and talking about it with Mother, Father decided to take the chance, leaving our home and moving our family to Cairo. It was difficult for me at first. The rich people hated me. They considered me old-fashioned and behind the times. They laughed at my cotton clothes and beledi or country manners and whispered that I didn't even know how to use a knife and fork. But Egypt's middle class and the poor loved me. I quickly realized that the key to success was to make my family proud of leaving our home for Cairo by winning the hearts of all Egyptians, rich or poor. I began to dress like the wealthy class. I watched the way elite ladies talked and learned their behaviors, manners, and how they spoke, and how they moved. The rudeness and criticism we received at first didn't deter me. In fact, it bolstered my resolve. For my family and myself, it was always about the music and the message. We were artists and wanted to share. I sought out the best vocal coaches and teachers of stage presence. I surrounded myself with top musicians, composers, and poets like Ahmed Rami. 1928 through 1935 were big years. Politically, things were changing. The Muslim Brotherhood was established in Ismail, Egypt. They advocated a political and forceful approach to Islam, one paying strict obedience to the letter of the Sharia law. It is a group at odds with most Egyptians. The Egyptian government considers them a terrorist group. During these years, I hired my first orchestra and performed for the first time in a glamorous sequined gown. My fame had grown so much that I was sought after to perform all over the Middle East. I produced a large tour with stops in cities like Damascus, Baghdad, Beirut, and Tripoli. I started my weekly Thursday night radio show on Radio Cairo, which aired for 40 years. On Thursday nights, Cairo's lively streets were silent because Egyptians spent the evening with me. The royal family, who often invited me to perform private concerts for them, even attended some of my public events. This was a great honor to me and would move me deeply. I also won my first recording contract and starred in my first of 6 films, Wfbb. I'm pleased to say this was the first Egyptian film ever featured in an international film festival. As my career blossomed, I saw how other artists like Esma Korn allowed others to manage their artistry, their schedules, where they performed, and how they worked. Esma Korn was a fine singer and my competitive rival for a while. She was the sister of Farid Al-Atrash, the great musician and composer who I had worked with. I witnessed the media's slanted coverage of artists based on their perceptions and agendas, whether good or bad, and I knew that approach wouldn't work for me. I learned early on from my own mistakes that I had to control the media's access to me. So I chose who conducted my interviews and what questions could be asked. I decided to keep my private life away from the media and the public. I made sure only those on my payroll were permitted to interview me. I controlled my image, my work, and my destiny. This commitment paid off with great opportunities. For example, I served as president of the Musicians' Union, the body that controlled what was broadcast. I produced my own concerts and negotiated my own contracts. I controlled every aspect of my live performances and films. I hired my own accompanists, actors, and technicians. I created and provided good jobs for other women actresses in a time when it was extremely difficult for women to get work. I empowered women. One of my biggest honors was performing for King Farouk. In fact, he honored me, a poor girl from the Delta Nile, with Nisan el Kamal, or Order of Virtues, the equivalent of female knighthood. Usually, this was reserved for royal families and politicians. I was deeply touched and very humbled. Although I controlled my career, there was one thing I could not control: my heart. I fell in love for the first time with King Farouk's uncle, Sharif Sabi Pasha. He returned my love and asked for my hand in marriage. Surt el-Hab, or talk of love, speaks of someone who never understood what being in love means or feared love. Now they find themselves in love and they are melting in it. Love. Such a funny thing, isn't it? It is said that girls transform into women through trials. The years are 1942 to 1947. The world is once again at war. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, the most famous and most popular leader in the Arab world, recently met with Hitler and formed an alliance. Hitler is financing the Muslim Brotherhood, much to the terror of most Egyptians. And Nazis are sinking our ships with their U-boats. Not only was it a troubling time for my beloved Egypt, it was a very hard time for me personally. You remember? I fell in love with Sharif and he proposed. Our marriage was forbidden by the royal family and our engagement quickly ended. I was hurt, broken-hearted, and my pride was wounded. I found solace in one of my musicians and married him out of spite. A marriage that quickly was annulled within days. I distanced myself from royalty and returned to my roots, supporting nationalist causes. Oh, my dear beloved mother, who lived with me my entire life and supported me in every way, passed away. Khalid, my beloved brother, died shortly thereafter. The grief was all-consuming. I was diagnosed with a severe thyroid condition. The illness led to chronic inflammation of my eyes. I drastically cut back on my work and appearances due to my goiter ailment and treatment. Love finally found me. People see me as a strong and powerful woman, and I guess I am. But I am also a tender, loving, and passionate woman that longed for romance and a loving relationship. I found it. I married my doctor and longtime admirer, Dr. Hassan El-Hifnawi. I'm happy. During the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, a horrible time full of hate and violence, a legion of the Egyptian army was trapped in the Fallujah pocket. Among these soldiers were the future leaders of my country's bloodless revolution, including Gamal Nasser, who later became the president of Egypt. They asked me to sing a song for them, and it was my deep honor to do so. In 1953, Egypt broke from British rule and gained national sovereignty, becoming known as the Egyptian Republic. After the revolution, the Egyptian Musicians Guild, the one I served as president, rejected me because I sang for our previous King Farouk. The guild forbid my songs to be aired on the radio. Art and politics just don't mix. Nasser came to my defense, though, asking, "Are you crazy? Do you want Egypt against us?" As you might suspect, the guild let me back in, and my music played once again. I supported the Egyptian patriotic cause and recorded many new songs for our new republic. Nasser was a smart leader and propagandist. He used my popularity to help himself. He knew all of Egypt listened to my monthly radio concerts, so he aired his speeches right after I finished for maximum exposure. I gave financial donations to charities for our military and their families. In 1967, there was the 6 Days War. Israel invaded us, occupying the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip. National pride was never lower. I knew I could help my country and my people. I went on a world concert tour to support the troops, to raise populist morale, and to promote Arab unity. The proceeds from the concert were more than $1 million, and I donated every cent to the military. Do you remember when we first started tonight? I mentioned Egyptians were denied entrance into Paris when I was a child. Well, it's interesting how times change. I recently had the distinct honor to perform in Paris, an important milestone for me and my beloved country, Egypt. I sang El Atal, or The Ruins. Although the lyrics are a love poem, Egyptians took it as a political meaning, especially with the background of the 6 Days War. "Give me my freedom, set free my hand," says the song. It is considered by many to be the crown of Arabic songs, the best Arabic music in the 20th century. Personally, it's one of my favorite pieces. Nasser died while I was touring Moscow. It tore my heart in two. I canceled my concert, dressed in black, and flew back to Cairo, weeping all the way. At the same time, in America, Richard Nixon is president, Jimi Hendrix just died, and construction on the World Trade Center is now complete. Thank you for your patience. I'm not feeling well. I don't perform in public any longer. My last concert was in 1973 in the Palace of the Nile. My final song I recorded was Hakim Alina El Hawa, The Verdict of Passion. Love ordered us to join as one and gave us that right. I never performed it live. You'll hear it in a little bit. I do hope you like it. My health has deteriorated to the point where I can no longer stand for extended periods of time. In fact, I could only sit when we recorded Hakim Alina El Hawa. In addition to my thyroid, I now struggle with gallbladder and kidney problems. Each of us comes face to face with our own mortality at some point. That's where I am now, in deep self-reflection. I wonder what my legacy will be. What footprints from my life will be left on this earth? I've had great fortune to represent my beloved country, Egypt, all over the world. I sang for royalty and paupers alike. I touched lives of millions of Egyptians through my music. I am humbled others gained inspiration from my artistry. I am proud to have provided work for other women and fellow artists, actors, actresses, behind-the-scenes cameramen and help, musicians, and composers. I hope that by owning my career, I was a role model for others to take control of their destiny. Where they want to go, what life they want to create, and what legacy they will want to leave. I've been a staunch supporter of literary education and the arts and artist rights. I still believe the government needs to support Arabic music and musicians, and I believe my influence has helped support that cause. I believe in giving back. It's our collective human responsibility. I tried my best to live this value by creating a charity and supporting causes dedicated to improving Egypt. I love my country, Egypt, land of the pharaohs, cradle of civilization, the mighty Nile, magnificent monuments, and the beguiling desert and the amazing delta. A country with a long past and a bright future. I hope my life has championed our traditional cultural values and Eastern culture that I love. I've opened my home to people from my village, letting them live in private as they've worked for a better life. Nieces, nephews, cousins, their children, they've lived with me in Cairo. I gave back to my village as well. I financed building a new school, a mosque, a medical center, and a cultural center. I also made certain my village was one of the first in Egypt to receive electricity. A community with power has the foundation to grow and develop. I look back at my life and I understand, even though I am a star, the fourth pyramid, I am still a simple girl from a rural community, a girl from the Delta Nile, dressed as a boy so I could sing, in a way that meant something. I dared to be myself, to be authentic in doing what made me alive and vibrant. And perhaps that's my biggest legacy of all. By living my life the way I have, perhaps I have inspired others to embrace themselves, the beauty, the flaws, all aspects of who they are, and fully live their truths with legitimacy and their faces towards the sun.